Hello and welcome. I'm Silas Goldman. My guest today is Roopesh Shetty, AVP of Operations for the global outsourcing company Vee Technologies. Roopesh is going to share with us the highlights from his new white paper that he just released. Identify revenue leakage in clinical documentation and coding process. Roopesh, thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you here. So what an interesting title. Can you tell me a little bit about the paper?
Good. Thank you, Silas, for having me. The paper primarily talks about the common cause of, inappropriate payment errors or incorrect coding due to the documentation insufficiency, and it talks about primarily, covers the CMS data, especially for 2019, what it looks like, which clearly emphasizes the importance of coding and the clinical documentation in the overall RCM process. It further dives into the case study, walking through Vee Technologies' approach, implementation, and outcome from an extensive audit that we conducted for a mid-size physician group practice to identify their gaps and revenue leakages, which primarily came through the inefficient coding process and lack of clinical documentation and physician education program. And how Vee Technologies, it kind of concludes with how Vee Technologies implementation of program helped them to improve their overall efficiency and as well as increase their revenue.
Thank you. You've been in the industry for many years, so you've seen quite a few things. What was it about this particular topic that really drew you to draft a white paper about this issue?
That's an interesting question. Look, while we are in this paper, I'm talking or referring to a mid-size or a small physician group. I think when you talk about coding and CDI solution, it's irrelevant of the size. I think every hospital and physician groups, irrespective of their size, it's critical for them to have this process. We all know in last few months what COVID has done to most of the hospitals in the country and how they are struggling to improve their revenue, to maintain their costs, and so on and so forth. For most of the smaller or mid-sized hospital, I think their primary approach should be looking inwards, looking into within their process and see where they can. That should be their first step. That was my thought process here, to see how they can plug in any revenue leakages, improve the overall efficiency within their process before they look into other areas of doing some major cost cutting within their process. So that's, and the client that I picked, I thought it met all those criteria, and that's one of the reasons I went with this client and the process that we talked about.
So for the audience that's reading your white paper, what's the number one thing you would like for them to take away from your topic?
Like I mentioned before, irrespective of the size or anyone in the healthcare arena who are dealing with the RCM process, I think coding is one of the first steps within the RCM process, and that determines what you're going to get paid, or if your claim is going to get paid or denied, or what's going to happen. So having accurate coding becomes more critical. So I would say the most important takeaway from the paper that I wrote is accurate medical coding, but that's not just enough. I think it has to be combined with an ongoing clinical documentation improvement and physician education program to avoid any potential revenue loss and non-compliance issues that most of the hospitals keep facing due to their inefficiencies. So I would say again, to close it, I would say key takeaway is accurate coding combined with ongoing clinical documentation program and physician education program as well.
Roopesh, thank you for your time today. I mean, I'm sure the audience is going to take quite a bit away from, one, your experience and perspectives in the industry, but also the insights you're going to share with this case study in your white paper. To learn more about this white paper, head to the Vee Technologies website, and you can download it when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you.